Today, we're going to talk about the number one absolute best way to cure Candida, and most people are going to associate that with a yeast infection or yeast overgrowth, which is correct. And the three top places where that happens is a vaginal infection, some kind of skin or nail infection, and also it can happen in the mouth, and then it's called oral thrush. You get this white coating on the tongue. But then in 1986, the book Yeast Connection was published by Dr. William Crook, and I always laugh a little bit about a last name like that. I'm sure he can't help. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. But it's kind of like a dentist called Dr. Payne. It just has to make things a little bit harder. But anyway, it was a pretty good book. I read it many years ago, but it oversimplifies a little bit. I think it's a bit outdated. It basically said that yeast causes everything, and avoid yeast in all its forms, and to this day people are terrified even of good yeast like nutritional yeast, which is basically a B vitamin supplement. So just like with bacteria and other parts of the biome, it's all about balance, that there's good and there's bad, and the bad isn't really bad if it's not allowed to overgrow. As long as we have the balance, then the bad stuff serves a purpose as well, but it's potentially pathogenic if things get out of hand, and overall Candida is becoming more common. The numbers are increasing, and there's more than one kind. There's 31 different species of Candida, but there's 5 species that account for 90% of all infections, and the most common out of those 5 is called Candida albicans. That's the one that most people have heard of. And overall, even though the numbers overall are increasing, Candida albicans percentage-wise is decreasing. And the reason for that is that we have antifungal medication, and Candida albicans is pretty susceptible. It's easy to kill it off, whereas some of the other 5 species are more resistant. So it's kind of like with antibiotics, that if you kill off the ones that are easy to kill, you're going to develop more resistant strains and create imbalances in other ways. But this is where we have to be a little careful with the standard way of thinking about this, that ever since we discovered bacteria and virus, the standard idea has been to kill everybody, because we've figured out that these pathogens, they cause disease, so just kill everybody. But we need to also understand that this is about balance, that any time we kill off one thing, we're going to favor something else. We're going to create an imbalance. And we need to start thinking about the body as an ecosystem, that Candida is part of the overall microbiome, and we need to start thinking about the microbiome as a separate organ. It lives inside your large intestine for the most part, but there's some bacteria in other places as well. But the total weight of these bacteria is several pounds. If you add it all up, it's about the size of your liver, and it probably performs just about as important a function. So when things get out of hand, it's kind of like the liver, which is an organ, can get a pathogenic infection like hepatitis. Well, when we get an infection in the gut, when we get an overgrowth of something, it's kind of just like we have an imbalance, that among these beneficial bacteria making up an organ, we can get an overgrowth of some, just like we can get an overgrowth in the liver. But the solution then is not to kill off the whole liver or kill off the whole microbiome. We have to be very, very careful with it. So if we want to understand the bigger picture, we have to understand what causes these imbalances. And the number one thing is going to be sugar and starches, because they selectively feed these primitive organisms. The most primitive are the virus and the bacteria. And if we eat a lot of sugar, then we tend to favor them and create imbalances. Another risk factor is uncontrolled diabetes. And why would that be? Because in uncontrolled diabetes, you have an abundance of available sugar for these pathogens. That's what diabetes is. It's a metabolic disorder where you're filling the body with more fuel than you're burning up. Another cause is stress. And what does stress do? Stress is a state where your body focuses on emergencies And if you have a bear chasing after you, then that's a bigger emergency than the food in your stomach. So anytime that you are stressed, you're going to decrease the priority for things like digestion and immune system. It's like you're turning off the faucet on the resources that help you digest food and help you produce immune cells and fight off pathogens. So anytime you have stress, you're going to shut off all the factors that make your gut work, basically. And also some of the most common causes are medication, things like antibiotics and antifungals, because what they do is they kill indiscriminately. They don't care if it's a good or a bad bacteria. The goal is obviously to kill off the pathogens, but in doing that we also kill off a huge percentage, or even in some cases most of the good bacteria, and then we kind of have to start from scratch. But some of these good bacteria might have been almost extinct at that point. And there's some other medications like steroids and birth control that are very strongly implicated in yeast overgrowth. Now let's think about what it means to cure it. For the most part, if you go to the healthcare system, they're going to try some medication, and I'm not opposed to medication. There's a time and a place in emergencies to use medication, but to use it for imbalances may backfire. First of all, the medication itself can have side effects, and also anytime we go in and try to change an ecosystem, we can get complication. But the main thing we want to understand is that the root cause remains, and therefore we will probably get recurrences or other problems. And even though this is so simple, we spend over $4 trillion on so-called healthcare. And the vast majority of that money is wasted because we don't understand that very simple basics and principles. So the way we want to think about this is that there are certain conditions in the body, and those conditions provide various opportunities for all these pathogens. They are opportunistic. That by definition, pathogens are opportunistic. We always have billions and billions of pathogens in the body. When we're feeling at our best, we have billions of pathogens, but they need an opportunity. And when they have that opportunity, now they can create overgrowth and imbalance. So we already need an imbalance, but then the overgrowth creates a further imbalance. So what are these conditions? Then, well, they are the things that we've talked about. So if you have a weak microbiome, if you don't have enough bacteria, again, you think about your biome as your liver. What if you don't have enough of the numbers of bacteria? What if you don't have enough variety of species? Because you need billions, you need trillions of bacteria. But you also need a wide variety of species for that ecosystem to be healthy. And another common condition, of course, is that we have way too much sugar. So with all of these conditions present, and then we take some antibiotics and we kill off some more of this biome, and we take some antifungal, some we upset the balance between the fungus. Now we have the conditions that provide an opportunity for overgrowth. So now, if we take a medication, if we take something to kill off this overgrowth, then we get symptom relief, and things look better on the surface for a short while. But we haven't changed the conditions. If anything, we might have made them worse by further reducing the biome and the variety. So the conditions remain, and if we still have the conditions, then it's just a matter of time before the problem happens again or expresses itself in some other way. So instead of the traditional way, we think of curing with medication. We want to think about restoring and preventing. So the number one thing obviously would be to not feed this overgrowth any further. So you cut back on sugar and starches, because sugar feeds them directly and starches feed them because it very quickly, in a matter of minutes, breaks down into glucose. That is their favorite fuel. And next we want to increase our food variety. We want to eat a lot of different kinds of food. And every time I make a video on a top 10 list of some kind of food, everyone wants to know which is the best food. That's what I'm going to eat a lot of. And we want to stop thinking about it that way. And that's why I do the videos the way I do, so that we can start thinking about foods differently. What do they have in common, but also to look at variety, and the number one thing that feeds the good bacteria and that maintain balance over time is going to be fiber. And we want a variety of different fibers, which of course we get if we eat a large variety of foods. And because stress is one of the major causes, obviously, we want to work on reducing stress. And I've done lots of videos on that, so you can truly understand what stress is. It's not just about feeling overwhelmed, it is how you condition the body into certain responses. Number 5 is exercise. And it does not have to mean blood, sweat, and tears and endless hours in the gym. Even though a gym can be beneficial, we're just talking about movement that your body is made to move. That's the purpose of the body, is to move around in a three-dimensional environment with gravity and to stimulate your nervous system. And once you do that, then everything in your body works better, including your digestion. And also exercise is one of the main ways to reduce stress. So just take my word for it that if you exercise and you move on a regular basis, then everything in your body is going to work better. A good way to add some bacteria and help improve the biome is through fermented foods, because when you ferment foods, you grow some of these beneficial bacteria that you can eat and help repopulate to grow some beneficial bacteria and some beneficial yeast to outcompete the pathogenic and the overgrowing yeast. And then, of course, we also want to talk about pre- and probiotics, because these are the supplements that people take to try to repopulate their gut. They hear that you took an antibiotic, so now you're killed off all the bacteria. Now you need to take some new ones, and that can be very, very beneficial. But it can also be a complete waste of time and money if we don't create the right conditions. Basically, the probiotics are going to be like seeds. And if you have seeds and you want to go sow a plant, a vegetable of some sort, then you could have the best seeds in the world. But if you throw them on the concrete in the parking lot, then they're not going to grow. You just wasted all that seeds because there are no conditions for them to grow there. So yes, they can be good and even necessary, but we have to think about the bigger picture. We first have to cut back on the sugar. We have to reduce the inflammation. We have to create a healthy gut. And now, when we add some pre- and probiotics, then we can grow some bacteria. And the probiotics are the bacteria themselves. The prebiotics are different substances, different nutrients and fiber that will help feed the bacteria. The probiotic, so fiber is actually a prebiotic, just like there are other forms that you can take as a supplement. And then there's also a number of different things that you can take, such as apple cider vinegar and oregano oil. Garlic, you can take some cloves, tea tree oil. The list is endless of different antibacterial, antifungal agents, so these have additional properties. But you don't want to try them on their own. You want to work on the bigger picture so that you can create the right conditions. And we want to maybe specially emphasize the apple cider vinegar or any other vinegar for that matter, because acetic acid is a short-chain fatty acid that is very, very important. It acts as fuel for a lot of the beneficial bacteria. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love that one. And if you truly want to master health by understanding of the body really works, make sure you subscribe, hit that bell, and turn on all the notifications so you never miss a life-saving video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment.